Hello, Avram Davidson Treasury. Avram Davidson was a very, very wonderful, although pretty cynical writer of short stories. And I am going to read part of The Golem and apologize ahead of time for the destruction of any accents that I may come across. All right. The gray-faced person came along the street where old Mr. and Mrs. Gumbiner lived. It was afternoon, it was autumn, the sun was warm and soothing to their ancient bones. Anyone who attended the movies in the 20s or the early 30s has seen that street 1,000 times. Past these bungalows with their half-double roofs, Edmund Lowe walked arm in arm with Leatrice Joy, and Harold Lloyd was chased by Chinamen waving hatchets. Under these squamous palm trees, Laurel kicked Hardy, and Woolsey beat Wheeler upon the head with codfish. Across these pocket-handkerchief-sized lawns, the juveniles of the Our Gang comedies pursued one another and were pursued by angry fat men in golf knickers. On this same street, or perhaps on some other one of 500 streets, exactly like it, Mrs. Gumbiner indicated the gray-faced person to her husband. "You think maybe he's got something the matter?" she asked. "He walks kind of funny to me." "Walks like a golem," Mr. Gumbiner said indifferently. The old woman was nettled. "Oh, I don't know," she said. "I think he walks like your cousin Mendel." The old man pursed his mouth angrily and chewed on his pipe stem. The gray-faced person turned up the concrete path, walked up the steps to the porch, sat down in the chair. Old Mr. Gumbiner ignored him. His wife stared at the stranger. "Man comes in without a hello, goodbye, or how are you. Sits himself down and right away he's at home. The chair is comfortable?" she asked. "Would you like maybe a glass tea?" She turned to her husband. "Say something, Gumbiner," she demanded. "What are you, made of wood?" The old man smiled a slow, wicked, triumphant smile. "Why should I say anything?" he said to the air. "Who am I? Nothing, that's who." The stranger spoke. His voice was harsh and monotonous. "When you learn who, or rather what, I am, the flesh will melt from your bones in terror." He bared porcelain teeth. "Never mind about my bones," the old woman cried. "You got a lot of nerve, talking about my bones." "You will quake with fear," said the stranger. Old Mrs. Gumbiner said that she hoped he would live so long. She turned to her husband once again. "Gumbiner, when are you going to mow the lawn?" "All mankind," the stranger began. "Pshaw! I'm talking to my husband." "He talks epis kind of funny, Gumbiner, no?" "Probably a foreigner," Mr. Gumbiner said complacently. "You think so?" Mrs. Gumbiner glanced fleetingly at the stranger. "He's got a very bad color in his face, Nebuch. I suppose he came to California for his health." "Disease, pain, sorrow, love, grief, all are not to—" Mr. Gumbiner cut in on the stranger's statement. "Gallbladder," the old man said. "Ginsburg down at the shul looked exactly the same before his operation. 2 professors they had in for him, and a private nurse day and night." "I am not a human being," the stranger said loudly. $3,750 it cost his son, Ginsburg told me. "For you, Papa, nothing is too much. Only get well," the son told him. "I am not a human being." "Is that a son for you?" the old woman said, rocking her head. "A heart of gold, pure gold." She looked at the stranger. All right. I heard you the first time. Gumbiner, I asked you a question. When are you going to cut the lawn?" "On Wednesday, or there may be Thursday. Comes the Japaneser to the neighborhood. To cut lawns Lawns is his profession. My profession is to be a glazier. Retired. Between me and all mankind is an inevitable hatred, the stranger said. When I tell you what I am, the flesh will melt. You said already, Mr. Gumbiner interrupted. In Chicago, where the winters were as cold and bitter as the Tsar of Russia's heart, the old woman intoned, you had strength to carry the frames with the glass together day in and day out. But in California, with the golden sun to mow the lawn when your wife asks, for this you have no strength. Do I call in the Japaneser to cook for you supper? 30 years Professor Allardyce spent perfecting his theories, electronics, neuronics. Listen how educated he talks, Mr. Gumbiner said admiringly. Maybe he goes to the university here. If he goes to the university, maybe he knows Bud, his wife suggested. Probably they're in the same class, and he came to see him about the homework, no? Certainly he must be in the same class. How many classes are there? 5 in Gansen. Bud showed me on his program card. She counted off on her fingers. Television appreciation and criticism. Small boat building. Social adjustment. The American dance. New Gumbiner. Contemporary ceramics, her husband said, relishing the syllables. A fine boy, Bud. A pleasure to have him for a boardener. After 30 years spent in these studies, the stranger, who had continued to speak unnoticed, went on. He turned from the theoretical to the pragmatic. In 10 years' time, he had made the most titanic discovery in history. He made mankind, all mankind, superfluous. He made me. What did Tilly write in her last letter? Asked the old man. The old woman shrugged. What should she write? The same thing. Sidney was home from the army. Naomi has a new boyfriend. He made me! Listen, Mr. Whatever your name is, the old woman said. Maybe where you came from is different. But in this country, you don't interrupt people while they're talking. Hey, listen, what do you mean he made you? What kind of talk is that? The stranger bared all his teeth again, exposing the 2 pink gums. In his library, to which I had more complete access after his sudden and as yet undiscovered death from entirely natural causes, I found a complete collection of stories about androids, from Shelley's Frankenstein through Capek's R.U.R. to Asimov's Frankenstein, said the old man with interest. There used to be Frankenstein who had the Sodawasser place on Halsted Street, a Litvaknevik. What are you talking? Mrs. Gumbiner demanded. His name was Frankenthal, and it wasn't on Halsted, it was on Roosevelt. Clearly shown that all mankind has an instinctive antipathy toward androids, and there will be an inevitable struggle between them. Of course, old Mr. Gumbiner clicked his teeth against his pipe. I am always wrong, and you are always right. How could you stand to be married to such a stupid person all this time? I don't know, the old woman said. Sometimes I wonder myself. I think it must be his good looks. She began to laugh. Old Mr. Gumbiner blinked, then began to smile, then took his wife's hand. Foolish old woman, the stranger said. Why do you laugh? Do you not know I have come to destroy you? What? Old Mr. Gumbiner shouted. Close your mouth, you! He darted from his chair and struck the stranger with the flat of his hand. The stranger's head struck against the porch pillar and bounced back. When you talk to my wife, talk respectable, you hear? Old Mrs. Gumbiner, cheeks very pink, pushed her husband back in his chair. Then she leaned forward and examined the stranger's head. She clicked her tongue as she pulled aside a flap of gray, skin-like material. Gumbiner, look! He's all springs and wires inside.